and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Gugulethu Cele. Now today we're going to take a look at the findings of the Moneybags report when it comes to the importance of consumers understanding their credit score. I'm joined in our Cape Town studios by Angelique Ruzicka. Good to have you with us this evening, Angelique. Maybe if you can give us a broad overview as to what the report entailed and the findings with regard to what consumers know about their credit score.
Yes, well, we basically just asked a simple yes or no question. We asked people if they knew what their credit score was. And unfortunately, we found that 75% of those people that responded to our poll, which garnered over 500 votes, didn't actually know what their credit score was. So that either means that they do not even know what a credit score is, or they haven't actually tried to find out what their credit score is.
Why that kind of reaction, though? Is it a lack of education when it comes to the financial services industry about the importance of a credit score, or just consumers being a little bit lazy?
I think it's a mixture of both, really. I would put it down, personally, I would put it down to apathy. I think there are a lot of people out there that don't try and find out what their credit score is, and it really is just so simple, because we've got quite a few credit bureaus and quite a few credit bureau providers out there who can give people their credit score online, and you get your first one free every year. So I think it's a case of apathy and maybe lack of education as well.
Now, you've obviously raised the red flags and as well as concerns about the importance of knowing what's in your credit score, but I take it sometimes consumers need to experience some of these upheavals before they actually get a good grasp of the importance of a credit score. But the warnings that you've shared with some of the consumers and the reaction from them, what has it been so far?
Well, I think consumers generally only try and find out about their credit score once they get rejected for a loan. So that's kind of been our experience up until this point. That's why we keep on doing the poll every year. That's why we keep on talking about credit scores and how to improve your credit scores. And why we write about credit scores so much is because I think people only really start to care about what's on their credit report when they actually get rejected for a massive loan, say like a home loan, car finance, when they've actually got their heart set on something. And then when they get rejected, that's only when they try and check their information to check if it's actually correct. So that's really the only time that they bother looking. Well, from our perspective anyway, that's what we found.
And in your experience, the type of channels that they try to maneuver through to find out why their credit score was rejected, is it usually the right parts, or maybe the more incorrect method of checking and updating their credit history?
I think they tend to use the right channels when they find out that they've been rejected for a loan. Then they do inquire through their bank or finance provider why they were rejected for a loan. And I think those institutions then in turn say to them, look, on top of that, you should really have a look at your credit score and your credit report and contact the credit bureaus to check your information. So I believe that that's how they end up checking their information. So that's, yeah, I would say that that's basically how they do it. And I think that that's probably the right way to go about it once you've been rejected for a loan, is to talk to your credit bureaus, and then on top of that also just talk to your financial advisor or debt counselor if you do end up having any kinds of problems. I'm not sure if people do tend to take that one step further, where they talk to their financial advisor or their debt counselor if they do have certain issues. But it's certainly people are generally quite disappointed when they realize that they can't get the loan or the credit that they want, and they find out that in fact their credit score has been quite poor, quite low, or they've been poor at paying their bills, and they actually don't realize that all of that kind of stuff gets recorded. Not just the fact that you don't pay, it also is if you're a slow payer, etc. Your credit behavior is just so important, but I think people only realize it too late, unfortunately.
Angelique, since you've been running this particular poll, have you seen a change in attitude from consumers, given the measures and steps that have been taken by institutions like the National Credit Regulator? Before, blacklisting used to be a theme and a word which used to set a lot of fear in South African consumers who were indebted. But is the word getting out? Are the mindsets changing, and new knowledge being created about the importance of monitoring their credit? We've
done this poll. This is not the first time we've done this poll, and we've had similar findings from the previous times that we've done this poll. So it's actually quite disappointing to see that it's still at that high level. You know, I think the last time we did that poll, the no votes on whether you know your credit score were also very high, at least 60% or above. And we're not the only ones to have done this sort of poll, and the results are pretty much always the same. So I would hesitate to say that, you know, awareness has increased and that the institutions involved in educating people about their credit profiles and their credit paying behavior has improved. I mean, we've had the likes of credit amnesty, various types of credit amnesty that have come through through the years. In 2014, people had their credit score cleaned if they'd paid their debts in full. I'm not sure if all these moves are actually helping people to realize that that they need to manage their money better. I think when you try and change the mindset of people when they have become adults, it's a lot more difficult. So I think, you know, we need to start more at grassroots level. We need to start more at primary school, even before that. We need to teach kids about how to manage their money and about debt and about interest. And I think only once it becomes, once all these institutions focus more on education at that level, that we'll see a dramatic change. I think when you become an adult and you've got certain habits and you've got certain perceptions about debt, and you don't see it as a bad thing necessarily, that's when it becomes difficult to change.
I couldn't agree with you more, Angelique. You're quite right. We need to go back to the grassroots level. But let's try to implement that now, even with the adults who might have some of their bad habits still with them. But spring has officially sprung in the country, despite some of the chills across several parts of South Africa. But for those who need typical financial advice as to how to try to get their finances in order, where would you begin by giving them advice?
Well, I think, you know, people start off in the year with good intentions. I think if they have some kind of record of their New Year's resolutions somewhere, whether it's be the financial ones or any of the other general New Year's resolutions that they have in terms of, you know, getting on top of their debt, they need to perhaps look back at what they wanted to do at the start of the year with their finances and to see if that's actually something 10 months down the year, whether they've actually achieved any of that, and kind of go through the reasons why they haven't actually done any of that. So, and then, you know, they need to look at things that they pay often and the type of things that they took on in the new year. If for example, they decided to join a gym and they have this contract that they have on an ongoing basis, and they're paying for this contract every month. Have a look at your behavior at the beginning of the year. Are you still going to the gym regularly? Are you still making use of those contracts? You had all those good intentions at the beginning of the year. Are you still keeping those up? And if you're not, then you really are wasting your money. So if it's spring, new, fresh beginnings, have a look at your budget, have a look at what you're paying for on a regular basis, and actually make sure that you're using it to the best of your ability, and that you're using it to the max, because otherwise it's a huge financial waste. Now is also a good time to check your bank statements to see what you're paying in terms of bank charges. Try and see if you still need all the products that your bank is offering you. You don't need to have that platinum card, you don't need to have that gold card. See if you can downshift to a cheaper product where you pay less every month. There's just all those kind of things that you can fine tune. Have a look at your insurance. Are you still? When last did you even renew your insurance policy? Have you looked at your motor insurance? Have you looked at your medical insurance? Have you looked at your home content insurance? Try and shop around. Try and see if there's a better deal elsewhere. And those are just a few of the things that you can do to improve your spring finances.
Before we wrap the conversation up, though, Angelique, with your final closing thoughts, the big question that always sits with consumers is whether to settle your debt first or save. Your approach to that particular argument there?
That's a very good question, and that's always a question that you kind of have to think long and hard about. But essentially, paying off your debt, I would say, is very, very, very important. On the other hand, having a bit of savings, rainy day savings, is also very important, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know if you would face retrenchment one day, or if there are just a couple of things that you need to do in order to grab some money and to help bail you out. So I would say make sure you have a nest egg that will help bail you out in times of trouble. But at the same time, also concentrate your debt. So I would say look at both. I would say make sure you're paying off your debt, and at the same time look at what you can afford to put towards savings. And if you're not really sure about where your priorities should lie, then again, I would strongly urge people to get financial advice, and to either speak to debt counselors or speak to financial advisors and say, I have this problem, I have a debt problem, but at the same time I want to make sure that I have some savings to fall back on, because debt at the end of the day is very expensive, and in my mind, I would rather, if there was some kind of emergency, I'd rather borrow from myself, so to speak, than from a credit provider.
Angelique, well, we've come to that part of the show where we just need to get the key takeaway points from tonight's conversation. Angelique, we've certainly said quite a bit, but if you could wrap it up into 3 main pointers for consumers to remember from tonight's conversation, what would they be?
I would say that you would need to look at your credit score, make sure that you know what it is, have a look at whether you're paying your debt back, and make sure that you're sprinkling your finances today. Don't leave it for the new year. Don't leave it to the last minute. Always do it on a regular basis. Make it as a monthly or a quarterly thing where you look over your finances, and you take stock of what it is you're doing, and make sure that you kind of keeping to the kind of promises that you're making yourself in terms of where you want to be headed with your finances. So if you have a particular goal, you want to pay off your credit card by, say, November, December, then do that. Try and stick to that. And then when you get to that particular date and time, try and find, if you haven't done it, try and find out why it is you haven't done it. And really just, make sure that you take care of yourself. Make sure you pay yourself in terms of putting savings away. That's what we mean when we say pay yourself. And just make sure that you manage your debts in a better way, so that you don't come across the rejection when it comes to the most important things like home finance and vehicle finance. When it comes to important loans like that, that you don't get shortchanged.
Indeed. Angelique, thank you so much for your insights this evening. Great speaking to you. That was the editor of Moneybags, Angelique Ruzicka. Well, be sure to stay in touch with us via Twitter or sending us an email, and we'll continue to bring you updates on personal finance. From myself and the team, though, it's goodbye for now.